Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Digital Learning Day. We're excited to bring you together remotely for a day of learning, collaboration, and practical strategies you can bring back to your classroom and agencies. Today's sessions features knowledgeable presenters who are doing the work in real time, and we're grateful they're sharing their experience and insight with us. Throughout the session, please feel free to drop your questions and comments in the chat. We'll pause at different interval points to address them and make this as interactive as possible. All sessions are being recorded, and the recordings will be shared early next week so you can revisit key ideas or catch anything that you have missed. With that, let's jump in and make the most of today's learning. We're looking forward to an engaging session filled with practical strategies, thoughtful reflection, and meaningful digital literacy integration. Our first session is From Click to Confidence, Daily Routines, Daily Digital Routines that Work for ESL Students. And our presenter is Catherine Bosco Leonardo. She's a leading reading consultant at TESOL, edu ed and TESOL educator for the 20 years of experience in K-12 and adult education. She serves at City Middle School in Naugatuck, Connecticut, and also works as a digital navigator and ESL instructor for short-learning adult education. Catherine holds a Master of Science in Reading from Southern Connecticut State University and an advanced certification in technology integration, and she is credentialed in reading TESOL elementary education and adult education in Connecticut. She has developed instructional resources for smarter balance tools for teachers and presents widely on digital literacy, multilingual support, and instructional technology. I've been witness to some of her sessions as well, so excited to have her here. Catherine was also named a 2022 Crystal Apple Educator of the Year by the Connecticut Association for Adult and Continuing Education for her dedication to students and colleagues. And with that, I'm passing the virtual microphone to Kathy. Thank you so much for presenting today.
Thank you, Jose. I appreciate that so much. And thank you everyone for joining. Welcome. It's been quite a few days here in Connecticut, so I am excited to be able to still um, do this presentation and have an opportunity to meet with you. I know we're all in a different mindset of where we probably were or where we thought we were going to be just a few days ago. So I do appreciate your time and you coming to the proverbial table to learn a little bit about some daily routines that help our learners and hopefully make our classrooms run a little bit smoother and build some confidence with our learners. If you wouldn't mind, if you could use the chat um, and just introduce yourself with your first name and your location. You don't have to go and change your name on your Zoom. We can just put it in the chat. And Jose has been so kind to monitor the chat for me. So if there's anything that happens during the presentation that you have a question on, or you want to comment, you want to just let us know. I like to talk. So it's a small enough group. So that makes me um, feel more comfortable if we wanted to unmute and share something when it comes up. That would be absolutely great. We have West Hartford, New London. Oh, New London. I hope you fared okay in this past storm. In the back, you can see the lots of snow that's out my back window. I know we all have that similar background probably going for us. But we did have in our district, we had 3 days off. So I'm excited to see colleagues and be able to have some conversations about the things that I love, which is digital literacy. So, all right. So we did our check-in. We used the chat, setting ourselves up with some routines, right? When we come into a workshop or we come into the classroom, if we start with those routines and build practice and build the routines, it'll always help us. I remember when we first started, even pre-COVID times where we couldn't find the chat. Where's the chat? People not turning their microphones off or learning those little idiosyncrasies of a group meeting. Now, sometimes I wish people would put their camera on, but I get it. Like if you're sitting there listening, that's the most I could ask for because sometimes if your camera's on and you're not listening, um, that's a whole nother level of engagement. But I appreciate everybody being here. Um, oops. And that was sorry, I'm using two screens, so there's a little bit of a learning curve here for me. And my mouse decided that today was the day that it wanted to just skip and not behave. But that's okay. We'll be okay. All right. All right. We're going to do a little SEL check-in. I teach K-12. We kind of have to. If we're all from this area, we can all relate to one of those um, snowmen. So taking a look, and you could even rate yourself from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, because Sunday I was probably at a 1. Like Sunday, I was like, yeah, this is cool. Fire's going. I'm going to have a day off tomorrow. Like they called it early, so there wasn't even anything to like worry about. Um, and by Tuesday, I was more of about, I don't know, a 7. Like I'm good. Like we've had 2 days off now. We're okay. And by yesterday, I was a 2. I was definitely a 2. Um, it was that mix, that wintry mix that prevented us from going in and just thinking about yourself and how this has impacted you. But again, another routine for our students, our learners, our staff, being able to connect, get into our mindset where we are. And again, if anybody wants to unmute or so oh, Amy's at a 7. Yeah. Absolutely. 8s. Oh, 8 looks a little complicated. Oh, all right. Good. All right. So I definitely I have to do share out though. I was sharing the presentation with my husband and he goes, "Some of those snowmen don't look happy." I go, "That's exactly the point." It is absolutely the point. Oh, 5. 5 still looks happy though. I do see the 5 and to me that looks like a pretty good. Oh, good. 4. Feeling the sunshine, loving it. Excellent. All right. So I do want to just give a little bit of background for me in the sense of where I've come from as far as technology in the classroom. Um, if you, I don't know how long as a collective that we have been educators. But when we take a look and we think about what it was like in 2001, I started in 1997. So an Apple computer lab with a dot matrix printer in the back was about all we had with floppy disks that, we couldn't remember where they ended up or where they were. Um, but when I really got like good with the computer, we had Oregon Trail. So the Oregon Trail computer station in the back of the classroom was a reward. It was I can't think of anything else for my kids to do, so they're going to go in the back and play Oregon Trail because they all love it. They die of the dysentery and then they come back and they're ready to learn. But we had a student and his name is Josh. And it's okay that I use Josh because it really was his name because I did some research and in 2001 it was the number 7 most popular boy's name. So it's okay if I use it. But Josh was a student who had a lot of struggles and he had a very difficult time sitting still and attending to a traditional classroom setting. And we had, and this is not a proud moment, but we had our spelling list results that we would post in the classroom. It was 2001. We've all learned and moved on from then. But those students who had gotten accolades for their ability of getting a 100 on their spelling test got to have it posted in the classroom. And very sad to say, in retrospect, Josh did not have stars. He didn't have any stars because he really taking a fine motor test and writing it was not his strength. But he was a very smart boy. So at one point I decided, let me see what it was like if I could get him on, because I knew how to get to the C prompt with to do some document. Um, let me see if he could take his spelling test on the computer and see what happens. And Josh was able to stand up and use the keyboard and type and be able to achieve what I knew he should be achieving, and that was showing his knowledge. And he got hundreds. And it was, I felt so bad at that point because I didn't give him that access that he needed in order to be successful. So when we think about our students and their success, are we providing them access to show us what they know? How are they showing us what they know? And it's not a one size fits all. So keeping up with the development of technology and progressing through the changes takes a special gift, I think, on some points, because once we figure we know something, it changes. So you're all here for that reason of, how do I get my students, my learners, to be successful, and what do I need to do? So not just in technology, but if we wanted to use the chat, how have you provided opportunities for student success? It could be anything. It doesn't have to be technology, but I want you to think about that. What have you done for your students to provide them with that success of accomplishment and learning? So if you want to use the chat, I'll give you a minute. Oh, look at that. I just made it pop up on the side for me. Yay. Sorry. Extra support while learning on the computer. Excellent. Yep. Having a central LMS to be able to create that routine, flexibility and availability. Excellent. Getting to know them, their strengths, and using that information to help them shine. Good. Excellent. And that you don't learn in getting to know your students is time, knowing what questions to ask, knowing how to ask those questions. Choice, excellent. Desktops, iPads, hard copies, excellent. So there's the variety there. Confidence, yep, absolutely. We see that a lot with our learners. If that confidence isn't there, then that becomes a barrier to wanting to show up every day or wanting to show up every week. So I think that there's a lot to that patience that we talked about, and getting to know them and having them feel vulnerable enough for us to be able to provide them with some strategies. Personalized approach. Khan Academy. Yep. Targeting those needs in that practice. Excellent. Okay. And then back here. Okay. So as you've seen, I have these little icons spread across my presentation, and those are purposeful. So I went through some SIOP training, which is my Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, which is just the long name of teaching ESL students, MLs, and being effective and intentional when you're planning. So we hear the word intentionality, and we hear differentiation, access. Those are words that we're very familiar with. But what I like to do for my students, and because there is a language, I don't want to say barrier, but there's a challenge of, that communication piece. I use icons to be able to let those students know what's expected of them during that activity. So if you have a speaking activity, there's my speaking icon. They're going to have to get ready to speak. They're producing something. Um, Listening, a lot of what we do is oral comprehension. So we're listening to information and how are we putting that back out for productivity in our writing. In my classroom for my middle school, I use a pencil for writing because if anybody knows anything about middle school students and technology, it's horrific at times. They won't pay attention to you. You're learning how to block things and using, monitoring software. So the writing, though, I shifted to a keyboard because that's how we're doing our writing together. So I use the keyboard instead of a pencil. And then our reading, I did put a book. I didn't want to put a screen monitor, but the reading is part of what, as you're learning language, those are the four domains that we use in order to access language. And being intentional about how you create your lessons matters. So in the SIOP framework, we talk about lesson preparation, planning, comprehensible input. All of our learners come from such a varied background of experiences. So we're getting students in who, they may fall under a certain category through CASAS if they're a beginner, if they're an intermediate or advanced, but they still don't have all of the same experiences. And because somebody has that literacy level or has that score doesn't mean they have experience with technology. So it's like learning another language. And with any language that we're learning, we want fluency. How am I going to look at that iPad and know when I go to the desktop that is I'm going to be able to get from one to the other based on what I know? How fluent am I in using a Google Doc? It looks different. I access it differently on an iPad or my phone than I do when I get to the desktop. A lot of our students aren't using desktops, but we have mobile devices. We have Chromebooks, an HP, a PC laptop is so much different than a Chromebook. They may look the same initially, but there's different actions in order to navigate through and be successful and build confidence. So taking those elements of SIOP and language learning and trying to embed them in our practice makes me aware. And that's why I use those icons for myself. And then when I sit and say, oh my goodness, we've only had, 2 listening activities in the past 3 weeks. I really need to focus on what these learners need for listening. So that's something that I keep in the back. So as you see in the bottom, she's going to read to me and I'm going to listen to her. So those are the expectations that are on the bottom. And I'm going to try my best to navigate through. I do have some links here that I want to share. But when we talk about our adult ed and we talk about the curriculums to support digital literacy, we have 3 different ones that we focus on. We have DART, North Star, and Google Applied Digital Skills. So give me a thumbs up in the chat if this is something that you've heard of before. This is old news, and I already know about this. Okay, good. Thank you, Nancy. Good. Excellent. All right. Perfect. Martha, is it new? Is it is it a yes? It's a smiley face, so I'm assuming that, all right, this is okay, good. North Star is one that you're familiar with, Joanna. Good. Okay. So I am absolutely going to be 100% honest. When I first started attending some digital ATDN presentations at CASE and online, and I got to know Jose, and he had all of this information in his head, and it was it made so much sense to him. And I just sat there and felt completely overwhelmed. He's like, but there's a spreadsheet. Look, we have spreadsheets now. And the spreadsheet, I was still overwhelmed. And then my coordinator said, let's teach a digital literacy class at Shoreline. And I'm like, yeah, I could do it. Uh-oh. Like, yeah, I know the basics. But then trying to take a look at who are my learners, what do they need, and what direction do I go in as far as supporting them? So I did this little like crosswalk of the DART curriculum, North Star, and then Google Applied Digital Skills, which I have to say, the Applied Digital Skills is, I don't know how far they are into, said, yeah, spreadsheets, thank you. How far they're into is changeover, and maybe Jose, you can help me with this. But the Google Applied Digital Skills did not look the same as what it did when I first became a little more comfortable with it. So are they in some of the links that they had where the content wasn't there anymore and they sent you somewhere else? So that was a piece that I have to say for myself and my learners, I don't work with a lot of advanced learners, like either advanced English learners or diploma program where the Google Applied Digital Skills okay, they've had a major makeover. Good. I think I need a major makeover, but for now, Google, I guess they have more money than I do. But what I wanted to show you is how they're set up. So when you click on Dart, and you could see this one, right? Jose, we're good with, okay. So when you click on Dart, it gives you the entire curriculum with links that take you everywhere you have to go. And this is great. And it's a little overwhelming, and there's a lot there. But what I want you to focus on are what are those topics that they're looking at? What is the content? Keyboard. Okay, we're looking at symbols on the keyboard. We're looking at numbers, alphabet. And I absolutely know that for most of our learners, the struggle between getting a keyboard, a laptop or Chromebook handed to them, and it's in all capital letters and not, or it's in all lowercase letters, depending on what kind of device you're using, really can throw our students as far as being productive or having confidence. So not only do they have to produce on the computer, but now they're going back and forth between their symbol system, their writing system, and English. A lot of our learners have learned survival skills, and on their phone, they will switch over languages to be able to make it a device that obviously is useful for them. But when it comes time to the English piece, and I don't have an overlay for my computer for the keyboard, so they're forced to be using those devices that have either all capital letters or lowercase. So that's um, part of our curriculum security, and these are in the pretty basic level of application, but still the language that's involved with the content can be a barrier for our students. The parts of a computer, using the computer, going online, creating accounts. Our learners have their accounts and their passwords and everything stored in their phones. They're not having to log on to a new computer every class and having to deal with that setback, which takes time. Creating accounts, we have safety, searching, troubleshooting. And Dart does a nice job of putting that all in order. With that being said, we have North Star. So anybody with North Star's experience knows that there's three buckets of learning. We have the essential computer skills, essential software skills, and then using technology for daily life. So our students, I tend to try to personalize, and I'll share with you how I do that. Personalize what they need. We, as a program, build with phone keyboard basics and logging in. So that is something that our students do. That's the first assessment they take. Basic computer skills and then internet basics. Those are our expectations for our learners when they take the digital literacy class that we want to cover. Um, and North Star does a nice job of providing practice materials, but that's more of an independent type of program. There are lessons in here that you can access if you have students who have that need specific standards addressed, which is part of this program. Um, but as you can see, it goes from the computer skills software and daily life, and then the Google applied digital skills. And this is the one page I pulled because there's 6 pages of different lessons that are here that can help your learners build some confidence and independence depending on what you had to provide as a foundation. So I wanted to share those and when we share the presentation, all of those links will be there as a way for you to look at these side by side. This is a visual I came across in my research that really helped me understand. And again, I know it's small and I apologize, but you'll have access to it. Everything is linked in the presentation. But it gives you that piece of when I'm planning for my students and I have to figure out what I need to do with them. What is the what? What's the representation? What kind of content am I going to give them? Am I going to give them a video, a hard copy? I think somebody in the chat talked about, sometimes I give them a hard copy, depending on what kind of test we're taking. Um, are they using an iPad? Are they using a desktop? Accessible text and visuals. Can they read it? Do they have to listen to it being read to them? Visual and auditory scaffolds. What kind of visual am I going to give my learners? Um, are they going to record anything you're modeling for them? Action and expression, the how. How do they show me that they're learning? There's different ways. Planning, creation, and reflection. Having your students, reflect on their activities and the engagement, the why. Why are we doing it? I need to be able to communicate. Your learner comes to you and says, I need to be able to communicate with my children's teachers in school, and I'm having a really hard time. They don't use translation software when they send notes home, and I want to be able to communicate. Or at work, we have an opportunity. I have an opportunity to get another position, but I need some office skills. So they have a very specific reason of why they're there to learn. And then all of these curriculums, if you can navigate through them, you can help support the students. Collaboration, which is huge. How are our students working together? Working independently is something that's usually on the easier end. But you also have, you know, a few students in your classroom and some may have similar needs. So how can I put them together to have them learn from each other and be able to learn the skill of collaboration? And we all know if we ever had a group project in school and you were the one who did all the work, it was a little frustrating. So how do we navigate through those challenges as learners? And then feedback and self-monitoring and I still don't get this. I don't understand what I'm doing. I still need help. Or I was able to complete that activity independently, and now I'm ready to move on to something else. So students need to be able to have that. And then I did include a lesson plan template from this same teacher. Her name is Miss Aird, Aird. I did link her page at the end, and she had some really great resources that were useful for me in my role. But if you have a chance, take a look. She does have a lot of stuff. And I didn't have the energy to try to it was just beautiful. It was visually appealing. It was useful. So she has a lot of stuff on that page if you want to take a look. And we talked about, or I talked about, and you guys listened, needs and barriers. So thinking about your students, what do you think students need to build independence and confidence? I think we kind of already touched that earlier. And thinking about our activities, they're high quality, immediately applicable. Like if I'm going to teach an email lesson, I'm not writing to, you know, a company that I'm not going to be able to purchase what they're selling. I want to write to my child's teacher. I want to write to my HR department because I need a day off. I have a doctor's appointment or I have to take my mother to the doctor's. So we want confidence building. So those are the three things to keep in mind when we create. And then students need daily routines to force repetition. So with that, sorry, I wanted to share a Google form that I created for my teachers. So I've done a lot of work with not only the student population in class, but working with professional development for my teachers. And when, depending on your role in your organization, your learners could be your teachers and they could be your students. So when we're asking our educators to ensure that these practices happen in the classroom. If our educators aren't feeling secure or confident, they cannot bring that to the students. So as a program, Christine Bjork, who is my coordinator, has been so supportive and so creative and so knowledgeable about how to bring professional development to our staff that we gave them a survey on the skills that um, we decided as a program that we need. We're going to ensure that students at our beginning level, we touch on these digital literacy skills, our intermediate and our advanced touch on these. So I did include a copy of the survey, and you will get totally annoyed with me when you get the presentation because I forced a copy for everything. So you're going to, when you click on it, it's going to say make a copy. And that is only because I've lived a life of sharing resources and going back to something that didn't look exactly like it was before I shared it. So we asked the teachers, what skills have you embedded into your practice in your lessons for the beginning level? And then these are the digital literacy skills that we decided upon as a program, and how do you put them into your intermediate and advanced? And then because this came out, we've done this in January. So we did it last January and this was this January. What do you see your students needing? So they've hopefully had their students for a few semesters at this point, so that getting to know your student, which was a comment that we had earlier on, um, where do you see the need? What do your students need? Are they beginners, intermediate, and advanced? And from here, we took this data and then we created professional development for our teachers. So that was a little bit different than what we did for our students. And this is just that same information. But when I shared original pictures, Jose said that wasn't, that didn't look good. So I typed it out. But the form that I am sharing with you has all of this information as well. And then because I can look at all of those different lists and I could put little check boxes and bullets and do all of those things, but I needed something that was going to help me visually represent what those skills were and that what was needed. So I used a tool, and I don't know if anybody has ever heard of it. And if you have, either give me a thumbs up on the screen, react, or in the chat. Notebook LM, which is part of the Google suite. Has anybody? Oh, good. Excellent. If you've heard of it or you've used it, if you wanted to share something in the chat that has impacted you as an instructor, please share it so our other participants can see. but it helps. Oh no, we'll have to talk about that, Nancy. Um, but it helped me organize what I needed, and all I did was take those lists and I put them into Notebook LM, and this is the infographic that came out of that program. So it is part of the Google apps. It is free if your school supports that app. But I will tell you, don't get all willy-nilly with the infographics because it's in beta version and they cap it. They don't know how many they're going to give you for free yet. But it's never enough when you're trying to, be creative and try new things. So this was something that came out of me using that to help my teachers understand. So we have hardware and gesture mastery. So if you're using mobile devices, I have students, and again, I ask them if they want to use a mouse when they're using the Chromebook and the laptop, and they look at me like, "Are you serious?" I grew up using a mouse. An old wired mouse to me is better than any new fancy thing with three buttons and not being able to figure out how to which one means what screen. So I do give my students a mouse when they're working and they're having a hard time because if you're on a Chromebook and you're double clicking and you're dragging and your down is up, it gets very confusing for some of our learners. So sometimes we go back to old school and they plug a mouse in and it makes that part of it easier. Web browsing, mobile first integration, like I said, they know their phones. So how do we bring that knowledge and that expertise over to other devices? Professional communication in forms, file workspace management, which I don't know about you guys, but my Google Drive looks like I couldn't even tell you. My filing system is trying to put the name of the file in the search or just go to my recents and hope it shows up. That's that's how. And then digital safety and awareness. I did a nice lesson on scams when the text messages were coming out about the um toll. Like you went through a toll and you owe like $4.35. So hurry up and pay it so you don't get charged. And in the end, you're thinking, oh my gosh, did I go to Massachusetts last week? I don't remember. And they're just fishing for your banking information. But a lot of our learners trying to get through the language and knowing if it's a scam is something that is a challenge for them. Um, oh yes, Anna, about Notebook LM. Absolutely. And that's when I've done professional development on the tool, I I tell teachers this all the time. You are the experts. There are things that AI comes out with that I don't know where the algorithm came from or where they're pulling it from. But that's why absolutely 100% checking everything over that AI brings to you, because there's not your expertise involved in that. Absolutely good point. Thank you. So we're thinking about routines in the beginning of class, middle of class, and at the end of class. So thinking about 5 minutes, and I say 5 minutes because that's the goal, but your beginning activities probably take a little bit longer than 5 minutes, which is why you're here. And then the middle of class, you think about that as your task. What do you have to get done? And at the end of class, those ending routines, um, and how do I wrap it up instead of just slamming the computer down and running? How do I create those routines for my learners? So again, here's my little keyboard and a question. I just want you to, after I've talked a lot in the last um, 15 to 20 minutes, I just want you to share in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Like I said, it's not a big group. What area do most of your learners need to focus on? It could be your teachers, it could be your students. So if you wouldn't mind just throwing that in the chat, and you can look back at that infographic if it helps. No, you can't. No, you can't. Hold on. Oh, hold on. This one right here. Just if you want to use that to help, what do you think your learners need to focus on? So I'll keep that up while you're adding information. Okay, keyboard skills. Good. Thank you, Amanda. Timers are great. Have become my yes, as I have my phone sitting right here with the time facing me. Professional communications and forms, good. Emails using school Google, yes, a lot of our learners log in when they get that pop-up from Google to log in. They put their own personal Gmail in, and then they cannot figure out why they can't access anything. Yes, perfect. Or just opening up the laptop and whoever was there last, they have access to all their, not that we're doing anything, earth-shattering. However, you want to make sure that you're keeping your information secure. So, yes, thank you, Nancy. And that's where targeted small groups come in. We're going to talk about those in a few minutes. But yes, there is such a variety of learning styles and learning abilities. Google search. Yep. Excellent. Thank you so much. PCs with a mouse, searching internet effectively. We are, in my experience, I'm in a Google world with the two districts that I work in. We're Google based, but there is a world still out there with Microsoft, and a lot of the North Star applications and assessments and lessons have to do with the software skills are office based, right? So I think you have PowerPoint, you have Excel, and you have Word. They have included Google Docs in their list of software. But again, like in Excel does so much more than Sheets does in my experience, but it's about that fluency. Like if I can figure out how to use Google Sheets, how do I then transfer that knowledge into Google Excel? So correctly close out of the computer on their own. Yes. Yeah, there's logging off. I call it logging off and then signing out. I've had to differentiate between the two for my students because I want to make sure they log out of their account on Google and then sign off of the computer um in that different when they have the laptops. So yes. Canva is in a world all by itself, but it definitely there's a big learning curve with Canva, and the benefits are what it does for you and the amount of time it saves you, but it's also you really have to have a strong foundation in using different formatting tools to be able to. There's a lot of AI enhancements that they have, but it's still a struggle. But thank you. Okay. So I created this quick routines for my teachers at Shoreline that just has a progression from beginner speaker, intermediate, and advanced, and then the different levels of activities that you can employ as a routine. This isn't meant by any means. I know it's small and I apologize for the font, but you will have access to it. But looking at the different buckets of the warm-ups, what can I do for my inbox and my etiquette? Search and evaluate. collaborate, mobile life and career readiness and professionalism. These are just some activities that you can embed in your daily practice. And then let's talk about the beginning of the class. Logging into the computers at the beginning of class. I've noticed that I've had to ask the participants to just hold off, just take 1 minute, say what you need to say, because as soon as that laptop or Chromebook opens, you mean nothing. Like there's a struggle and you need to get them where they need to be. And everybody's at a different level. Using Google Classroom as your attendance tool. So this is something that I have implemented in the classroom because it gets them on, it gets them to Google Classroom. And in our district, I love IT, but when you log into Google, all of a sudden, like 3 different applications open, like Screencastify and Edpuzzle, and 3 different applications pop open, and it just is overwhelming for our students. So I get them into Google Classroom. We take attendance. They're typing, so they're using that typing skill. They're building independence. They're using the stream to respond. So there's a little social media element to it. You can post a question in Google Classroom that they can answer that was related to the last class, depending if they're at a little bit higher of a level than beginner speaker. Set up links to independent practices, and then beyond Google Classroom, you can send, I don't know if your districts or your programs use Talking Points or some other type of communication app, but sending communications and getting them back when I first get my students in and sending them back real time. So I know that they're getting the message and they could reply to me so they're comfortable with it. What we did in Brantford at Shoreline is create visual cards for our learners. I've had one student that I've had for 5 semesters, and we're still working on logging in. So there's a level of frustration there for the student as well as me, but I feel more for the student because the student has 2 phones. One's a phone and one is used to help translate. And then that student, you know, comes in, and are we picking up the PC or are we picking up the Chromebook? So there's a lot of struggle that that learner has. So what I did was I took actual pictures of when I open up the Chromebook, what does it look like? Or the PC, what does it look like when I have to log in? What does it look like? So on this presentation that I have printed out for just the students who need it, I go through and everything that they see as they encounter it, I give them directions. Then there's a Chromebook version. What happens with your Chromebook version? The Got It, when they log into a new or a different Chromebook and they're logging in for the first time, that little Got It is usually hidden on the bottom toolbar, and nobody sees it and they can't go anywhere. So this is something that I just created for um, the students to help them. And that way I can give that to the students who need it and then maybe pay attention to something else that's going on that needs my attention. So, and again, there's so many different students in the classroom with all varying needs. This is just an example of the attendance that I took. So, and if you'll notice, the student with the green Y is the same student. This is the same student who 3 times put their name in for attendance. And but the first time just the name, then said, oh, I have to do the date, and then did the date again, which is fine. Did first name, last name. So it was a progression, and it was fine because I know that that student is trying. So this is something that works very well for me. Google Classroom also has hot links that you could put on the left-hand side of navigation. So when I have students who come in who are savvy or can log in and they don't need me, I put those links in there so those students can go and do some independent practice. You can put anything that you use in the classroom in there to be able to, if you wanted to link an article that they're working on or some other platform, by use that link, you can change it up. But the students will then become familiar with how you have that set up. They're like, you know what? I don't remember Burlington English. Like, I don't remember the website, but I can go into Google Classroom and I can find it from there. So that's another way to build independence, which builds confidence. Um, this is something that I took from my training in small groups, and I had to apply it to the classroom because I had students who couldn't move on past being stuck. So I took that red light, yellow light, green light type of strategy, and I put it in play for my students who, and not anything out of need, were just shouting out and needed direction and attention. And I was only one person. So when you're trying to troubleshoot and problem solve with one student and you have another one who's asking for your assistance and not realizing that you're already providing assistance for another student, it gets a little, you start to sweat. So I created these cards. On the back, what I did was I made an activity where the students, I told them what they're going to type. So they got their typing practice in. I put a hot link to Google Translate. So if they needed to figure out what exactly it said, they can do that. And then I had them write in their L1 on the back of the card so they understood what the card said. And then when somebody needed help, I looked and I said, well, your card's green. It means you're good. And I gave them that visual representation, and then they changed it. They went back and they changed it. And if I didn't run right over, they could switch back to yellow. So that was an activity that I found very useful. These are when we get to the middle of the class, we talk about what is our content, what is our task, what do we want to do. So I did some linking of the three curriculums again, which is what we had before. But then I aligned, if you were doing jobs and searching in Dart, then you could work on creating a resume in Google. And then what skills could you work on in North Star? Word processing, save as, and typing. So this is just another way of seeing how those three align and thinking about your students. What are their needs? Are they a Dart student? Do they need more foundational skills? Do they need language? Or are they more independent with North Star or with the lessons themselves? So we're using tools and practice skills. You're using the North Star assessments. You can link a video or do student choice. This activity I wanted to show you quickly was using just what's in Google Doc. So this was just something I wanted to do for independent practice to show you that the students can use voice. If you go into tools, go into voice typing, and when you click on the microphone, your students can practice the words that are here for pronunciation. It is no way as fancy as Burlington English, but when it takes their voice typing and it puts it together, and this may be frustrating for some students too, but it can help them with their pronunciation. So if you click to speak, it 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 listens to you, but you can then just say the word and it will type it and the students can check. So if I click keyboard, password, okay, you can get the gist of what's being offered. And I put the directions down here with visuals. And then using North Star. So if you've ever administered North Star, we only have 5 minutes left. I'm watching, Jose, don't worry. Um, you get a list of standards that the students missed. So North Star takes for independent practice, takes them back into, gives them practice videos and little interactive activities that help. There's a curriculum that goes along with it. but I wanted to use it. I had multiple students who took one of the assessments and they all had something that they could work on. I took that information and I put it into Teach Share, which is another AI type of platform that does give you free access to their product. You get 7 when you first start, and then every week after that, you get 3 um, activities that you can make. And I found that I put in what the students needed. So I copied and pasted the missed standards that they needed to improve. And it came out with worksheets that then targeted what those students needed. So it may not be everything that you need, but it did a nice job at creating small group target groups, small groups that I can then go ahead and work with, while my other students who are have more experience in higher digital literacy can work in North Star. So if they're working, some of my students only work in North Star when they're there. They can only take the assessments when they're there. So this is something that I have found that has been super useful in lesson planning and different tools that you could use to create. One of these surveys I give to my students, and this aligns with DART. What do I already know? And when I give this to them in the beginning of class, they could tell me how comfortable or what they need. I could take that information and plan for them. And then I give it to them again at the end to see if there's growth. I can do small groups in Google Classroom. If you go into your all students, when you create an assignment, you can just assign it to certain students. So not everybody has to get the same assignment. And then I use daily exit tickets. Those daily exit tickets are used to they're used to gauge for me, but it gets students to fill out forms and be able to get used to giving feedback. So they're typing, they could be clicking, they could be using forms, they're navigating. We don't have time, but this was just an activity page using the vocab. What were different ways that you could think of implementing some digital literacy skills? And again, this is a 4-week progression of skills, what you could do in week 1 to 2, and then 3 and 4. Again, I used Notebook LM for this, and I had to redeem myself because this is what I originally had, and it wasn't going to cut it. But this is something that helped me see what I needed to do. So there's information to contact me, and I wanted to end. I do have an exit slip, and of all things, Kathy didn't embed it. Look at me. So can we send that to them, Jose, in a follow-up? Okay. If you don't mind,
Yeah,
that would be
definitely.
great. All right. I made it. It looks great, but it's not here. So I don't want to keep anybody past the time. So I just wanted to say, and I apologize, towards the end, I kind of threw a lot of resources at you, but I think it's all on how we need to process things. But there are so many ways to create routines, but it all depends on who you are as that teacher and what you're comfortable with and what your students need. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. The contact information is there. And just know that I am willing to, obviously love to talk. I love to help out. And I want to be able to be a resource for you that kind of has that I'm on the streets. Like I'm doing it daily. So, and I love to brainstorm. So if you contact me and tell me what you need, I can always try to help and we could talk through what could work for you and your students. So thank you very much for your time. And again, I appreciate everybody. I know it's been a crazy few days, so I do appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Kathy, for this wonderful presentation and for sharing your insights. Um, we will be sending, I know there's a couple questions in the chat. We will be sending the slides. There's links that she has that we would include also. That would go with the recording, so you'll get everything in one. We do also have an evaluation that will come out also through the system. So all that will get out to you early next week. And with that, we our next presentation is going to be at 10:15, and we have two presenters from Social Media Test Drive, which is one of my top favorite applications. Um, they'll be presenting on a session on Social Media Test Drive. So stay tuned, take a break, stretch your legs, get some coffee, and then come back for our next one. Thank you very much. See everyone soon.